Hey, Chris.
Hey, how lucky are we? Crazy Kurt's in the house.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's Crazy Kurt.
Oh, man. See, here's a good thing. I just said I'm alive. I just said you were alive.
We are live. We are live. All right, how's it going, traders? We are back, episode 50.
Lucky 50.
We're into we've been in double digits for a while. But
Double digits that start with 5.
Double digits starting with 5.
Oh, yeah.
So, been a long week for me.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up missing last week the birthday celebration because I had an eye that was pink.
Yeah.
I had the poop finger in the eye.
Yeah, that's not good at all.
No, it's always badly. And then, wasn't able to make it in yesterday because I had to do family obligations. So it's the first time we've seen each other.
I know. Yeah.
How's it going?
No.
lot going on.
I quit getting tattoos of people because they all die.
Oh, yeah. So another tragic loss.
And here's the thing with Romita. He was 93.
Yeah.
I mean, God, man, I could dream of lasting that long.
Really?
I mean, you know what I mean? That's like,
I've heard about you in the mosh pits. You may not.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's gonna have to slow down.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's. I mean, he had an amazingly long life.
Right.
And he had an amazing career. Unfortunately, I never met the guy. I was never lucky enough to.
Right.
But I mean, from all accounts, he was a really good guy too.
Well, and there's a lot of these artists that we don't really get to appreciate them until they're gone. I mean, Romita is certainly at the top of that heap, and industry-defining artist.
Oh yeah.
And preparing for today's show, I mean, we got a bunch of Romita books to show off. It's all Spider-Man, of course. He did a little bit of work. He did some work on like some romance stuff over at DC.
Oh yeah. He did some old Marvel romance stuff too, didn't he?
So Night Nurse and
some
of that stuff.
Oh, I love that book so much.
Yeah,
I got that when those were pennies, man. Those were worthless.
Yeah.
And they're in such nice condition, man, and they were absolutely worthless. Now they're like hundreds of bucks a piece.
It's crazy. But
it's because it was like you had the Watcher prototype and like Tales of Suspense. You had the blah blah blah. Well, this was the Rosario Dawson prototype. So that was a big book. And before you know it, she just became hugely popular. Yeah. That's, but no, I mean it's even though it's not the same character, I mean it's still great.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that she's in the Marvel Cinematic Universe too.
Right. I like the way that they used her in that Daredevil saga where she was the crossover character.
Yeah. And she was the one that tied all of them together.
Yeah.
Which is great. I love that. And they did it really well. I thought they did a good job with her. I think that she played it really well, even though it was, very, very different, of course. But she played it well. She did a great job.
Yeah.
And I really, hope that once the writer's strike is over, now there's the actor strike that's looming.
Right.
And I mean, I think, and I kind of feel like, back there, they're gone. Okay, here, put some rum in this now. Sorry,
the kids are gone.
Oh my god. Anyway, sorry. Jesus, they want to go through those Batman books and see what they actually look like. I think, man, I don't know what this means for the future of cinematic Marvel stuff right now.
Yeah. Well, I don't
it's not looking good.
I think they peaked with, of course, Avengers Endgame and all that. And
yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed on one level or another everything, right? Except Moon Knight. Really, no, there were parts of Moon Knight I really liked.
I love them.
Yeah, so do I. That's why I didn't like the show. Sorry. No, I mean, there's everything has been at least enjoyable that I've seen so far.
Right.
And Eternals I didn't like, Moon Knight I didn't like. That's about it. And there have been some big hits, but there's been some misses.
Yeah.
And you look at the Marvel Universe stuff, the cinematic stuff right now. Okay, so you've got almost sort of say it's a reintroduction, I guess whatever. And it's sort of a maybe soft reboot. Who knows? With Netflix stuff going to Disney Plus, right?
Right.
And so you got that going on. You've got the phase. Was it 5? Phase 4? I don't even know what phase we're on anymore.
Yeah.
Set phasers to I don't know. But you get the new Marvel phase happening, right? And you've got the big Kang storylines. You bring in FF and X-Men in, and Namor was kind of your first taste of FF. You got all this stuff going on, right? But then you look at this, and it's like Ant-Man 3, in modern standards, barely made any money.
Yeah.
The guy that plays Kang is a major problem.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, they're looking to replace the dude.
Man.
He's got domestic abuse claims and all kinds of crap, man.
Yeah. That's
good. Hard to work with, getting in fights with people on set. Now we have harassment and claims like that against the guy that played Namor.
Yeah, I did see that.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that. Well, and I, for a comic fan, I don't like the way they treated Namor.
I don't think they had any choice.
I don't think that Namor, he's not the Namor from the comic books. He doesn't make sense. His background doesn't make sense.
Is. That's why they had no choice.
Yeah. Well, they could do it. They could do it still.
They
would have gotten
able...
Jason Momoa to do it.
Oh God, I would have gotten. I would have gotten an actor to do it.
I think it would be great.
No, they, if they did that, if they did Namor like Namor, people would have hated it. Like you and me and some of the comic geeks would have been like, "Cool, all right, man, that's a better Aquaman than Aquaman,"
Yeah.
But that's all anybody would have said is that's a better Aquaman than Aquaman. No different than Dr. Fate. Everybody was like, Dr. Fate's just a crappy Doctor Strange ripoff. I was like, well, not really.
Right.
He was around way before, But you do these cinematic universes, man, you can't follow. You have to lead.
Right.
And when Namor's never been in there, and Aquaman was, and they made Aquaman so Namor-like, you can't. I mean, look at the Jay Lee stuff in the Namor series that he drew. The rockin' 90s Namor,
right.
Whatever, man. He had long hair, and he was like, brood, and all that stuff, and it's exactly what they did with Aquaman.
Right.
You couldn't have put Namor on the screen like Namor because people really would have given up on it at that point. They're like, oh my God, man, Marvel's so desperate with their new phase, they're ripping off Aquaman. Yeah. Because people would know.
Well,
but then, okay, here's the other thing, though. Thunderbolts movie on indefinite pause.
Right.
Daredevil show on indefinite pause. All this stuff is on pause right now because of the strikes, the impending strikes. Their profits are going down on these things. Like I haven't seen I don't think I've seen a Marvel movie in the theater since the last Spider-Man. Because it's not a pleasurable experience anymore. That sounded way too creepy sexy.
No, but you're right. But by the same token, they've all but announced the Punisher.
Mm-hmm.
John Barenthal's out there advertising it like crazy. I'm coming back. I'm the Punisher. They're apparently moving forward with that.
Oh yeah, in the new Daredevil series.
And the new Daredevil series.
But again, when? Because it's on hold indefinitely.
Yeah, but those things don't last forever.
Yeah. And that, I mean, that's a circumstance, right? But it's like man, you've got all this stuff in the comic industry right now, and where people are fighting with each other. They don't want to work with each other. They hate the publishers. The publishers are pissed at them for speaking out now. You got all these people that are like, oh, I don't want to. So you got all this strife going on, man. And if you can't put a product out, you're screwed.
Right.
So what's going to happen? That's what I'm saying. Like, what in the hell is going to happen to all this stuff? I think I don't want to say we're seeing the beginning of the end, but we're seeing the beginning of the beginning of the end.
I don't know. It's hard for me to think in those terms because, I mean, just if you look at everything the comics have been through over the last 3-4 decades, like how many times has the end been here? And then they always emerge on the other side, and it's a lot of regrouping and trying to figure out how to move forward. At one time, they put, give all the stores their own exclusive cover, and that'll save the industry. And it did for a while. Then they overdid it. And I think that's where we're at. They're going to figure out the next step, and then it's going to be a hit, and people are going to buy into it, and it's going to run for a while, and then they're going to overdo it, trying to milk it, and it'll crash again.
But here's the problem now, and here's the big difference. This stuff, they weren't huge corporations at that point.
Right. But
there were smaller companies that owned the comics, and they didn't have, they used to base the movies on the comics. Now they're basing the comics on the movies.
Right.
And as long as that's a corporation, they're not going to stop doing that.
But I also think that we are at a place right now where I'm just going to use Marvel as the example. Marvel and Disney they're definitely doing that, but now Disney's saying that that's not working. Like Moon Knight, as cool as I thought it was, did not do what they wanted it to do. Neither did Hawkeye. Neither did She-Hulk. None of them are. Ant-Man failed. And nothing's driving that creativity in the comic books. So we're going to get to a point, and I think, and I've been listening to Clownfish and some others, and
you talk to Fish?
I do talk to
Fish.
Why
do you play anymore?
But I think we're at a point where Disney's getting ready to sell Marvel Comics, but retain the film rights. I think they're just trying to bring them I think as soon as they snag X-Men and Spider-Man back from Sony.
They already have X-Men. Because that's Fox.
But they don't have. Oh, yeah, that was Fox. Yeah. That's right.
The only thing they don't have
is
Sony.
When they get the Sony property,
I guess Hulk Universal, but they worked out a deal with that.
They will keep those movie rights and just let the comic book rights go to somebody else. I mean, they need to start selling off assets to make money anyway. So that's an easy job.
Yeah, and I mean, we're back to the 90s now, man. Where we got to farm out all the other stuff, sell all of our extra file cabinets and computers, so we can make the rent. I mean, there was I think there was too much of a boom.
Right.
And I mean, I would like to go back to, again, and you can't do this anymore, though, where the movies were based on the comics. You can't do that anymore because they've already established it. They've already established, this is what it is, man. And you're always going to have these comics based on movies now.
But if they can separate those two entities, Marvel Comics and Disney, Marvel Studios, if they can separate those two entities, then it's no longer what they're doing now is Disney saying, okay, we're making this movie, this movie, write your comic books to promote those. That's what they're doing. They're using the comics as an advertisement. But if they could separate them, then that would give the comic creators free reign to come up with something new and something different that could then be used in the movies.
Yeah. But I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I think it's too late for that because they've already established where all this is. The only way they can do that is to do a new 52 thing.
Right.
Scrap it all.
Right.
And they're never going to do that.
Just as saying, do a clean start over, which is exactly what the new 52.
That was a dirty start, but yeah. The next time we do this show, I'm going to have my glasses.
Or Crisis.
I will have glasses next time I do this show. because I just read Jesse's comment, and it says, "What would you think would do us?" No, I put that back. What would you do? What do you think would do a Secret Wars on a boat? That's what I saw. That's what I saw because I can't see a goddamn thing anymore.
Yeah,
why would they use Secret Wars on a boat? That's weird. Like Speed 2.
Yeah.
You look clean start. Yeah, I mean, and I feel like they've gotten themselves into such a corner now. They have to. I mean, and if they are shopping Marvel, and if somebody does buy a Marvel, I mean, they made their billions off it. They can say, okay, screw it, we don't want any more.
Right.
But that's the problem. That's the problem with these big multinational companies getting this. I mean, like, who's going to be able to afford Marvel?
Well, and there's a perceived value to it.
Yeah. But who's going to be able to afford them?
I don't. I mean, there's plenty of people that could afford Marvel, or at least afford the licensing for the comic books, a free license. But they won't. Like, Disney's never going to let go of Marvel Studios,
right?
Because they think that's where the money is.
But I mean, what I'm saying, if I'm Disney, I paid $4 billion for Marvel. Okay, right. I'm not going to let it go for $10 million. I'm going to let it go for $5 billion.
I don't know. They're looking at selling Lucasfilm for a loss. So, what's to say they won't do the same with a comic book company that they don't perceive the value of?
Yeah. But, it's still not going to be $1 billion.
I think at least with Warner, they know the value of the comic book company. They know, because there's enough people hanging around. There's the Jim Lees and these guys that have been in both sides of it that know what the value of that comic book company is.
Right.
And although it's not going to make billions of dollars like the box office receipts, there is a value in having those comic book creators coming up with new characters and new stories and new things to get your viewers excited.
Yeah. But going back to, again, my point though is, if you're going to buy Marvel, they're not going to sell it for under $1 billion.
No.
Who's got $1 billion?
Marvel Comics?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can see them selling for less than $1 billion.
I can't.
They don't think there's any value there.
All I'm saying is I really hope that they don't try and sell it for so much that the only way they can get rid of it is another big corporation. And right. It's like, Robert Kirkman, he can't afford it. Todd McFarlane, he can't afford it. Right. These guys can't, and like comic people can't afford to buy a comic company.
Right.
Like, they can't afford to, and like, as much as these guys make, they don't have 500 million or 700 million just sitting there. It might be their net worth, but they're not going to sell. They're not going to get rid of their house and everything they own so they can buy that.
I could see a situation. I think it was Marvel, actually, that they were talking about. It might have been DC that they were talking about with Kirkman and Mark Cuban and a bunch of different investors coming together and purchasing.
And that sounds terrible too, man, because then you've got 10 multimillionaires telling a comic company what to do.
Well, it depends on who they are. If Kirkman's involved, if McFarlane's involved, if Rob Liefeld's involved.
When's the last time you saw Mark Cuban write a comic book?
Mark Cuban makes a lot of money.
I know he makes a lot of money, but he's not a comic person.
But he's
he might read some comics, but he ain't a comic guy.
He dabbles in pop culture quite a bit. He owns Cinemark.
Yeah, that's different though. I dabble in edibles quite a bit, but I'm not going to start a farm. I'm not going to start a distribution center. Right. You know what I mean? It's like dabbling is not being an authority on it.
Right.
I dabble in all kinds of shit. And I don't want to do it.
I do think that it's a long shot to kind of think of them going to an investment group or another company and selling off the comic books. But I could see them doing an open license with somebody. There aren't
possibly,
there aren't many smaller companies that could take that on, and that comes with its own issues as well. Because if I'm Dark Horse, and they give me an option to pick up licensing for Marvel Comics, and
you don't have that infrastructure.
Then, I mean, even if you've got the infrastructure in place, you're still going to have to toe the line. If they say we're coming out with this movie and we want you to write to that,
yeah,
like, you don't really have much of a choice because it's Disney.
Yeah, and see, that's the problem I'm seeing is Disney. I feel like Disney would just keep doing that.
Yeah,
because they need to start making. Now, and another problem that I see with this stuff, and it's the same thing with Star Wars. And I would love to go back to the days where you get, one Marvel movie a year in May, coincide with Free Comic Day.
Yeah.
So and you get one Star Wars movie every 3 years.
And that's the way it should be.
Yeah. And if you want to do a couple of TV shows, that's fine, man. But, Curtis, you want to come and say hi?
Come here.
Get over here, Crazy Quilt. What'd you call him?
Crazy Kurt.
Crazy Kurt.
Crazy Kurt.
I told him I felt like I was in the library. Quiet.
All right. So, any of you that are out there watching this, so we're trying to promote the Utah Comic Crew, and we got Crazy Kurt from Crazy Kurt's Comics.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Hi. Oh, have a seat.
Yeah, there's a seat. This is the seat. Want me to sit on your lap? That would be really creepy. That would be really creepy.
I know, wouldn't it?
Yeah, really awesome around here.
Here, let me get your chair.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. That's my place, man. I do what I want.
That's
true. How's it going?
It is going good. It's going good. I'm in a comic book store. How
yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. So,
do my leather face over here with the chair.
So those of you that don't know Kurt, we're going to do a quick introduction. You're Crazy Kurt Comics on Facebook.
Facebook.
We're crossing streams.
Twitter.
Okay. You do YouTube?
Yeah, a little bit
on YouTube.
I'd like to get some longer form videos. I just haven't had the time. I'm a stay-at-home dad, so the kids take up a lot of my time.
It does a lot of like short video content. I see you a lot on the Reels.
Yeah, I do a lot of
Reels
too.
So find him on the Facebook. I'll put a link in the description a little bit later on.
Crazy Kurt Comics.
Tracking down Crazy Kurt Comics. Got a great collection. I've done some work for you. You got some great books. Very knowledgeable about comics and whatnot.
So what are we talking about today, guys?
We're just kind of blabbering on
stuff.
We started by touching on John Romita Sr.
How could you not touch on that?
No.
Yeah.
It's it's like I said, and it's sad as hell. I mean, he's my favorite. So now I got my favorite Spider-Man artist, John Romita, right there.
Right.
Oh, very cool.
My favorite Batman artist, Neil Adams, right there.
Yeah.
Is anybody else we should be worried about?
He's getting heat from Boko on his left butt cheek later.
What do you mean getting? Her husband might have something to say about it.
But it was
a tattoo. I'm sorry.
I was in preparing for the show today. I was watching a lot of interviews and saw a really cool one with Todd McFarlane. It wasn't really an interview. It was a reel that he did on Instagram, but he just came on and was like talking about John Romita and a lot of the younger people, I would say 35 younger, look at Todd as being the Spider-Man artist.
Yeah.
And I think his art's amazing, but Todd's like, no, and he even said John Romita, if it weren't for John Romita Sr., none of us would be here. Like, he is the Spider-Man artist.
Especially John Romita Jr.
Well, I don't know. A lot of people might not be happy about that.
But he's definitely the one that created the look of Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Through that McFarlane run.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even down to the spider on his back. That this McFarlane did the spider on his back like that, man.
Right.
That is just like Romita's Spider-Man is, again, and I think it is, it's up there with Neil Adams' Batman. It is up there with Kirk Swan's Superman. It's so good, man. Now when I think of modern stuff, Wolverine, I think more, Jim Lee. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's more of a modern situation, in the 70s, whatever. Didn't really get big until the 80s. I mean, McFarlane, I associate McFarlane with Spawn.
Right.
I mean, that's, but if you even look at that, what's Spawn? It's Venom and Spider-Man, essentially, with a sentient cape.
I think age has a lot to do with it. I think depending on your age and when you came up into the comic world, like I grew up in the late 80s, in the 90s, and when I started collecting comics, it was very late in the 80s and in the 90s and during the whole boom. So I knew Todd. When I think of Spider-Man, the very first comic I actually bought was a Todd McFarlane Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So when I think of Todd McFarlane, I think of Spider-Man first, and then obviously I think of Spawn, and then only after being in the hobby for a long time and you learn about the greats like you said, Neil Adams and John Romita. But I think that depends on when you grew up, who your guy is. On a particular comic book.
Yeah. And that, that is definitely true. I mean, I know people that just started watching. They just started watching comics a while ago. They haven't done much. They just started reading comics 10 years ago, and then to them, their ultimate Batman writer is Grant Morrison.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know what you're on, but share it. So I can understand it too. But you know what I mean? And it's like, my Batman stuff, Denny O'Neil, that's the Batman writer, like my Batman artists are Neil and Jim Aparo and like those guys, I'm like, oh my God, they're so good. And, and they really, I think they set the characters, the look, the design, and just like set it all up for people just to grab and run with.
Right.
They're like the first runners in a baton race. They're like, okay, man, we start this race. We got this. Okay. You take it from here.
And if you look at the Spider-Man that's out today, like last week's issue, they come out once a week. So there's gotta be one last week. But if you look at those character designs for Spider-Man, they don't have a throwback to that really early 70s stuff or that late 60s stuff. It all goes back to Romita.
Yeah.
And the same with Batman. If you look at people that are doing Batman, it all goes back to Adams.
Yeah. And it's kind of sad. I think Ditko's stuff on Spider-Man's overlooked a little bit, and I don't like his art anywhere near as much as Romita's.
Right.
I'm not a huge Ditko fan. I like Ditko's early, mystery sci-fi horror stuff. That to me is like where he was there. When he did Spider-Man, he was more on a schedule. He was like, get this out. And you could tell that he was hurrying with some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Some of it he was like, and then, same with Batman, Bob Kane, for the time, whatever, but it was a little sloppy. I think it was a little awkward and stiff.
In the early 70s, there was a big transition when the soldiers started coming back from Vietnam and the world was getting more real. And a lot of your comic book characters, your main ones, Spider-Man, Superman, and Batman, these characters took on more of a realistic look in the books.
Yeah.
And that's where Romita stepped in, because if you look at Spider-Man 50, that classic Spider-Man No More cover, like that's real. That's not a cartoony looking drawing. That's a real looking drawing.
You know the mistake on that, right?
Huh?
You did the webs wrong.
Oh, I didn't. I've never knew that.
I have to go back and look at one.
Yeah, he did the webs wrong. I mean, he even admitted that too. He even admitted it. He's like, "Oh, I screwed this up." But that's still like, who cares, man? You don't even notice it. That's how many decades later, nobody even knows it.
Would that get an old no prize from Stan Lee?
Probably.
I still got my no prize.
Here's one for you.
That's what I miss about comics. That stuff.
I know, man.
Old
the
no
fun
prize.
stuff,
I used to read the back and see all the what people would write about it and ask questions and notice this, do this.
I do like they did those no prize covers, the variant covers. Those are pretty neat. I like those. Those are cool. Because that nobody that's like under 40 has any idea what that means. But, whatever.
Yeah, that's interesting. You said under 40. What, as I'm new back into the hobby in the last few years, and I've stepped away for a long time. Um, how do comic book the companies, how do they get young viewers or young readers to come back into the hobby? Because the hobby only sustains itself if you constantly keep getting new people into the hobby. So how do they get the new people into the hobby now? Is it basically all of the movies?
I hate to say it, it's a combination of movies, new characters in every 3 or 4 issues of something, and relaunches, number ones.
Yeah, because I mean, when I started, it's funny that the movie's coming out this week. When Batman came out, like in '89, I had never even thought of buying a comic book when I was in my teens or whatever. And that movie came out, I thought it was really cool. And there's this comic book store in my area, and I went there, and I was like, oh, it's pretty cool. And you pick up one, you pick up another one, you read it.
Yeah,
and then you want to know what happens at the end, which is always a sign of a good comic book. When you read it, you're like, oh, I want to know what happens next. And then, but I don't know if kids do that nowadays. They see a movie, they run into the comic book store and say, oh, I got to get this book.
To an extent, I mean, I get that a lot, but then again, I'm across the parking lot from the theater, so
That's true, that helps.
They go see Spider-Man, and they walk out, and the first thing they see is the store.
Location.
They see my sign, and they see that because they're not watching where they're walking, and they usually fall over the curb, and I laugh at them, and then I start texting somebody about how upset they are. But but the other thing about that though is back then, if you remember, man, you got to, like my experiences. You go to a Circle K, a 7-Eleven,
7-Eleven. That's where
a drugstore, a grocery store. You go to any of those places to steal cigarettes because you're too young to buy them. You're going to see comics there.
Yeah.
I mean, man, there's comics all over the damn place back then.
In a few places.
Yeah, you go in, you get yourself a Slurpee. You drink it really quick. The old guy behind the counter doesn't realize that you're just putting all kinds of shit in the empty cup. From what I've read on the internet, you grab a carton of cigarettes and you're like, hey, comics, I'll buy that.
Kids don't do this at home.
I do think a little bit of my soapboxing is we get two kinds of young readers. You get Jace, right? Jace is a great kid. He reads every book he picks up. He buys Spider-Man. He reads it.
Weirdo.
Loves it. But he actually reads. So you get those kids. But you also get the ones that went to see whatever Spider-Man movie's out, and then they're sitting on YouTube, so they YouTube Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Comic Tom pops up, and I love Tom. Tom's a good friend. But Comic Tom pops up and is talking about that Spider-Man book because of the movie is worth so much money. And then they're like, side hustle. And they run to the comic, and they buy all these books without reading them. So you get both.
Yeah.
I think it's our responsibility, and I think we've done a good job with this with Jace and some of the other younger kids that come in here, is to kind of nurture the reading of the comics and get them into maybe some indies that they'd be interested in and looking at beyond the flashy cover of the week and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And, and that's a really good point too. Now you get some of this stuff coming in, and it's like, all these things are bringing new readers and younger readers and everything like that in. They are definitely bringing 2 different kinds in.
Right.
The speculators are the ones that get on my nerves.
But the other thing that's interesting that I find, is I've been doing this enough that it seems like every 5 or 6 years, there's a new influx of readers.
Cool.
And I think it's because, as we get older, and we're all reading comic books. Yeah. Our kids grow up with comic books.
My kids see it.
Yeah.
My kids see me doing it all the time. Every morning I got comics sitting at breakfast with my superhero coffee mug and reading books.
Right.
Yeah. Every night I go home, I sit on the porch, I smoke crack, and I read. Well, I'm giving too much about myself. But no, I go home, pour myself a drink, have a nice scotch, sit there, read it. Like last night, I just sat out there and just read a stack of comic books on the back patio. Man, it was great. I loved it.
But I do think it's a case where we, as the older, experienced collectors, have to kind of nurture the hobby for newer readers.
Yeah.
Reading in itself is kind of a lost art. But reading comics in that short format, I mean, it used to be like you look at these kind of books that we've been throwing up and throwing up. I threw up a comic book.
Wish I could throw up a Spider-Man one. But come on, go.
You look at these books, and it used to take us, 20, 30 minutes to read one.
Oh, yeah.
I can read through a book in 8 minutes now.
I think that has a lot to do with, if everybody was watching last week, what you had said was the way that they write comic books now. They write it. I mean, one story. I mean, it takes 7 issues to get through the whole story. Where before it would all be self-contained in one, maybe 2 books. I just recently got a lot of old Avengers books, and just going through it, reading it was a whole self-contained story. I mean, the story was a little nuts, but like a whole self-contained story. And it took me a while to get through it. And then you read, I read a different book. I think it was Spider-Man, and it was over. Like I felt like it was over in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Big splash page, and it's just drawn out. And it's like, man, if you actually think about it, from the beginning of the story in that book, from the first moment of action to the last page, not much really happened.
Yeah.
But you read another book, and it's like there's so much talking, there's so much writing, and the whole story went in places in that one book. And this has changed the way that they write books now.
A lot of that art, I think, is lost. There's a new book this week. We're sold out of it. But it's one of the books that I read last night when I got home. The Sickness.
You recommended it. Beck recommended it to me when I was in here yesterday. I got it. It's sitting on the pile. I haven't read it yet, but I've been wanting to read it.
And so that is, that's right. That's our our telephone game of recommendations. But that's one of those that, first off, the art is amazing in it. The writing is fantastic. It's got a depth to it. It's got a lot of things happening. And it took me 20, 30 minutes to read.
Yeah. Another book that this week came out, the one you talked about before, The Nasty.
Yes.
There was a lot of dialogue in that book, and it took me a while to go through the book. It was great. I find myself, I don't mean to digress, but I find myself.
That's what we do.
I get really excited about independent books now more than I do.
Definitely.
I mean, we know Batman, we know Superman, we know Aquaman, we know Green Lantern, we know the Flash, we know all those guys, and we've seen a million stories of those. But when you get something new that you haven't seen yet, or a story you haven't seen, that's what gets me excited sometimes. I read World Tree and The Nasty, and The Sickness. I want to
good stuff.
I get really excited. Oh, I can't wait to get to the next issue and get to it.
Yeah, right. The only thing I don't like about The Sickness, it's by Uncivilized Comics. So it's going to be 3 months, 4 months. Releasing another one. I think they'd be like, no, it's timing.
And that's definitely a place where I think the indies can shine, because they have people that are looking to tell a story and do it in a shorter format. Like they know they have to get their story out in 6 issues tops.
Yeah. Right.
If they can't do that, then they're in trouble. Number one indie book in the next 6 months, in my opinion, Good Boy. Good Boy's taking off. They got the video game, they got the toys, everything's taking off for Good Boy. And that first run was 6 issues, 5 or 6 issues. Told a fun, comprehensive story in a few issues.
Now, for newbies, because I'm kind of an oldie and a newbie because I was away from the hobby for so long. So when I come back into it a couple years ago, I'm still trying to pick up on all the things I missed out and what I know. So what is
Good Boy?
Yeah, what is Good Boy?
Good Boy.
I was called Old Boy. I was thinking the movie with what's his name? The guy who played Thanos. I forget. Josh Brolin.
Yeah.
He said Old Boy. No, Good Boy again. I'm sorry.
That is such a different thing.
Good Boy is an indie book put out on Source Point Press, written by Garrett Gunn, good friend of the show, Garrett Gunn. And it's basically the story of John Wick from the dog's perspective. Like it is fabulous.
That's like this
and they're
dog
doing Good
going
Girl.
around shooting people up. It's had a sequel. They're doing Good Girl.
Yeah, this is the cat.
Oh man, that's great. That's great.
It's brilliantly written.
It's really cool.
I mean, he's got a lot of humor. He's a funny guy, and he's really good with words.
I think those who have the platform to do so, I think we should take some responsibility in trying to promote these independent stories or these independent comics to get them more out there. I try to recommend them something. If I see something that's really good or read something that's really good, that's different, I always try to recommend it to somebody. Like I'm a big wrestling fan. I know wrestling's not always the coolest thing, but last year, one of the best books I read last year was Daniel Warren Johnson's Do a Powerbomb.
Yeah,
and it was a great book. It was only 7 issues, but it was awesome, and I'm excited to see him do Transformers now.
That one was really interesting because the writing in it was like there's a lot of action in professional wrestling,
right?
And I haven't followed professional wrestling for many.
There's a lot of writing in professional,
but
there is a lot of writing.
Yeah, that's true. But the story, the dialogue was brilliant.
Yeah,
well paced.
Artwork was great. I will say this: anybody who hasn't read Do a Powerbomb yet, go get that. And on the ending of book number 2, it's by far the biggest jaw drop I ever had. Reading a comic book, watching a movie, anything. The what happened in the plot was like, oh my god, I can't believe that happened. And I was really surprised.
Yeah, and see again, that stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited about independent book. Right.
Yeah, like and we'll go back to the Nasty.
Yeah.
I was going to say I love the Nasty, but that sounds weird. But no, hey man, whatever. Man.
I gotta have hobbies.
It's. I mean, the thing I liked about that, and as I thought it was going to be another, and I love this stuff. The cursed comic book, the cursed novel, the cursed movie, whatever. And that's like a whole subgenre that I love, right? Cigarette Burns. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I didn't, but I'm aware
Master
of it.
Horror one. Yeah, so cool, man. I love that stuff. And I picked up the Nasty, and I was like, I picked up the Nasty. It sounds like I've been places I shouldn't have been. I bought the comic book, The Nasty, and took it home and read it.
Took the Nasty home.
Took the Nasty home. Boy, is my wife happy. And I started getting through that, and I'm like, all right. And then it just went like, like did something completely
that really spoke to me,
man.
because when I was a kid growing up in the 80s, I mean, that was all we did was go to the video store and rent movies and get horror movies we were supposed to be watching, but no one ever parented us in the 80s. They just wrote something and we were just watching ourselves.
And it was the video. It's based on the Video Nasties.
Yeah.
In Scotland and in the UK, it takes place in Scotland.
Yeah.
But what were you saying? Somebody said they didn't understand the language that they were speaking in it. I'm like,
I recommended it.
Jesus,
I did
man,
a post on Facebook or TikTok or something. Someone said, I tried to get through that book, but I couldn't get through the language. I'm like, they speak English. It takes place in Scotland, but they speak English, so I'm not sure what part of that you had a problem with. But
oh man,
do you and I'll do me.
It may have been some of the references too.
Yeah,
when they talk about the Video Nasties and stuff, I mean, like, you have to know what that is.
Right. So for those of you out there who don't know what the Nasty is, it's a comic book that takes place in Scotland, and a kid grows up with an imaginary friend who is the character serial killer in these movies that he watched as a kid.
Slasher technically.
Yeah, and he follows him around, and no one sees him, and he decides they're going to make a horror movie with this movie that's been banned and no one's ever watched, and all kinds of crazy stuff happens.
And then you stop there.
But I highly recommend it. It's by Volk Comics.
Yeah, that's when I picked
really
up.
Good stuff. John Lee that did Sink, the same writer that did Sink.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's great, man. John is a good writer.
You have anything you recommend besides Good Boy?
I'm
always looking for new stuff, just if I can afford it.
I mean, Good Boy's a good read. The current run of Detective Comics, I think, has been really good. They're telling more stories as opposed to the action. Batman's a detective; he's not a superhero, and that's what I like. I like that stuff. And I was going to mention this book.
Ooh, he's gonna.
Oh, because we were talking about indies and the new Star Trek run is really good too.
Oh, you're a big Star Trek guy.
I am a big.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so this is another member of the Utah Comic Crew, Mike Lovin.
Not McLovin. That's a different guy.
Mike Lovin's a completely different guy. We Go Anywhere, and it's extremely well written. The artwork is a little more like 80s black and white. I can't get a picture or whatever, but it's basically the story of he took the idea from Alien, the movie Alien, and so yeah. Cool. So it's they're truckers in outer space. So it's blue collar workers in outer space, and just what goes on with their life, fighting the corporations, and kind of a mix between that alien world and a little bit of Firefly thrown in there.
Okay.
And he just came out with this trade paperback. Do you have this on the shelf? Do you carry this?
I do, but not how many of the trades? I think they sold a ton.
Okay. So if anybody's interested in a trade paperback, We Go Anywhere, support a local creator.
No.
Contact me. Contact Greg. we'll make sure you get a copy of it. Like, we want to support our local creators and small creators. So yeah, that one's super cool.
And this I wasn't gonna read until I started flipping through it, and there's some creators in here that I was like, that's cool, man. Like, I like Phil Hester. I really love Shaky Kane. Just weird, crazy stuff, man. But
it's about a warrior princess.
Yes, Xeno. You're like the third person today. It was like, they're doing a new Xena comic? I mean, no, Xeno. And this is the kind of stuff that I really miss.
Like Xenomorph. Xeno, is that what it is?
Not really.
Kind of alien stuff. Okay, I'll shut up and let you pick.
It's cool. All right. So this is stuff I miss, and it's kind of a sci-fi, some like just weird indie stuff, and it's an anthology.
Okay.
And it's fun, man.
I love the anthology format.
And the word and anthologies are always touchy. They're a mixed bag, because it's like, okay, well, you got two big great stories, and then like that Batman Gotham Villains thing. I thought there were like three really bad stories.
Right.
There
the
were
One Bad Day stuff.
No, the villain Gotham City Villains, or
okay,
like the big 80th anniversary thing. Whatever. I'm like, okay, there are like two or three terrible stories in here. There's a couple decent ones, and then there's like one good one. And it's always a mixed bag, and it's like a box of chocolates that maybe somebody pissed in half the box. But this one, like, the worst story in this, in my opinion, was still a good story, and the best stories were amazing. Like the Shaky Kane story, that's one of my favorite stories I've read this year. Probably, it's in the top 10 of my favorite stories this year. And it's just like a little 10-page story in there.
Cool.
And I was like, my God, that's cool, man. Takes place in the, in the 50s. So there's the Red Scare stuff going on, and that's like sci-fi prime,
Right.
And so they've got the look out, the communists are coming, and is my neighbor gonna call me, and then it's got the other things. If I say anything else, we'll screw the story up. But oh my God. Yeah, everybody dies in the end. It's really sad. Also, also Darth Vader's father, the guy's in the girl. Okay. No, it's super good though.
Cool.
I liked it way more. That's like the pleasant surprise of the week.
Oh, I'll check that one out. That's my kind of thing. Yeah. So cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we are at the limit here. So real quick, Kurt, so at this point, do you have any like regular shows you do, or are you just posting shorts?
I just post regular stuff every day. Pretty much, I do something with comics in my room or downstairs, or do something that hits, comes to mind. And I just post a video and say, hey, watch this. I would love to do more long form videos. I just need more time to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is very time consuming. I've learned over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, follow Crazy Kurt's Comics on Facebook, Instagram. It's kind of cool because I'll be like going through my reels while I'm sitting on the pot, and there's Kurt, and he's talking about whatever cool book he grabbed from the shelf this week, and
he watches you in the bathroom. That's gotta make a difference. That's gotta
I think everybody would be really surprised. Most of the time, everybo's in the bathroom with their phones, and that's where most of the stuff happens.
Yeah.
Well, no matter what that stuff is,
we all know that's where you're doing your TikTok.
Is that what you call poo poo?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, one other thing I did want to mention, with John Romita dying, one thing is getting overlooked a little bit right now. I think Ian McGinty died last week.
Oh yeah.
And that is a very, very sad situation. He was 38, really good guy, nice guy. I have had, interactions with him online and stuff, and we have a lot of mutual friends. Really just super nice guy. He did Adventure Time, Being Puppy Cat, did Invader Zim. Like, he's done a lot of really cool stuff. And again, he was 38, man. He was so young,
way too young.
Yeah. And it's I don't know exactly what happened, but a lot of things are being said about him just being overworked and his just taking advantage of and stuff, and he just burned himself out.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very sad situation. So I mean, if we're going to talk about, I feel we need to talk about Ian as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just it's been a rough year for creators.
Yeah,
it has.
Yep.
Yeah. So
go to your conventions, get some autographs, meet these people.
Meet them, because man, you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know. That's I say a lot of the stuff with that, man. Go to conventions, meet these people, tell them that their work means something to them.
Oh yeah.
And don't just come out and say, "Hey, I want these 30 books signed for CGC." Just do it within that window. You know what I mean? And you talk to these people because they're literally putting their lives into this. Their blood, sweat, and tears, and sometimes their entire lives. And you don't know who you're ever going to see again. And that's I go to a lot of concerts too, because you just don't know. You don't know who you're going to be able to see.
All of my books are personal life, and I get them signed.
Yeah.
Because Mike's going to be a world famous comic creator.
They're gonna replace all the driver's licenses that you see in the convenience stores and stuff on the way to Vegas. It's the same McLovin. It's going to say Mike Lovin.
There you go.
It's damn. Yeah.
All right. So we're going
to
wrap it up. Go read some comic books. Say hi to your creators. Subscribe to Curtis on Facebook, Instagram, and if you hate him, let me know in the comments. We won't ever have him back.
Yeah.
If you don't, let us know in the comments.
I'd like to thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah. If you like him, let us know. Probably still never have him back.
Because if you like him more, you're like,
yeah, there you go. Yeah, he's a good guy. We talk every Wednesday at length. Huh?
Yeah.
And that's another thing. If you're going into your local comic shop or anywhere, talk to people, interact. Don't be afraid.
That is the best part of coming. You go anywhere to get comic books. I go to any comic book shop. I come here because it's fun to come here and talk.
You get comics online.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But that's part of the interaction. Talk and that stuff. See this trailer? Did you see that trailer? Did you watch this movie? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you see the TV show? That's the best part.
And talk to people, man. Whether you go to I can't say this enough. Whether you're going to the grocery store, whether you're going to the convenience store, the comic shop, the movies, it doesn't matter, man. Talk to people and interact, for God's sake. People don't do it anymore.
Yeah, as a retail manager, veteran of 20 years, yes, trust me. Talk to people.
Yeah.
All right. So make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and ring the bell so you'll be notified whenever one of our shows drop.
Ding.
All right. See you later, traders.
Take it easy.